Hey guys, so recently I did a really cool gaming PC build in this Gamdias Apollo M2. It has these awesome 200mm fans on the front, which really sets the case off. So I'm going to take you through some of my build decisions and show you the results. Let's get started. Hey guys, remember to subscribe if you like my content, smash that like button. So today, let's talk about the Apollo M2. This is a case by Gamdias. They sent this to me along with the power supply. I'm going to do a really cool gaming PC build in it. Anytime I choose a case to do a build in, I always look for a very specific and special attribute that case may have to really set it off against everything else. As soon as I saw that this case has these 200mm fans on the front that are digital RGB, I thought, all right, I really have to do a build in this case. I absolutely love that look. The only other case I've built in that has these type of fans are going to be the Cooler Master H500M, which has the 200mm fans on the front as well. But this has it, and it's a little bit of a smaller case, which makes it even cooler. So let me take you through some of my build decisions. Now, the motherboard and processor, we're going to be building in the AMD Ryzen 5 3600. I just think this is one of the best value for the buck gaming processors. This PC is going to be used primarily for gaming and other type of, light word and use like that. So the 3600 fits the bill perfectly. We're going to do a Gigabyte Aorus I motherboard. Now, this is a mini ITX motherboard, and of course this case can fill an ATX motherboard, but eventually I may move this motherboard into a smaller case and then move another motherboard in here. Generally, I would use maybe an ATX motherboard in here, but I don't think the mini ITX motherboard looks bad, and considering I don't really need other PCIe slots in this build, this is going to be more than good enough. And of course, I just happen to have this motherboard laying around. If I had an ATX motherboard, I would have put that in, but I did have this particular combo already set up, so I figured why not throw it in here. The case is pretty small, so I think it's still going to look nicely proportional. So the next important component in this case is going to be the GPU, and here we chose a pretty beefy GPU. It's going to be the EVGA 2060 Super Ultra. Now, if you notice, this is a really thick GPU. It takes up 2.5 slots. Very, very big, thick GPU, has fantastic cooling. It's ultra quiet, that's why the name is Ultra. Ultra quiet when it's gaming. It gets some really nice clocks, really nice performance. I like the aesthetics of it. It's very sort of understated and industrial looking, but it still has some nice RGB lights on it, so that makes it pretty interesting. I can use the EVGA Precision software to not only overclock it, but also do whatever I want with the LEDs and make them whatever color I want. For the RAM, I use the G.Skill Ripjaws V RAM. This is just some blacked out RAM. Looks really good. Of course, it's going to be 16 gigabytes of RAM, which I think is the perfect amount to have in a gaming computer. For the SSD drive, we're using an Intel 660p, a 512 gigabyte hard drive. I also think this is one of the best values for the money. They perform really well. I use them in a bunch of builds. For the cooler on this build, I decided to use, once again, the Gamdias Chione liquid cooler. This is a 120mm cooler. Of course, this case does use a 240. You can easily put a 240mm on top. But once again, the 120mm cooler is what I had available. And I think to cool the 3600, this is going to be more than enough. In fact, it's considerably better than the stock AMD cooler. First, I tested it out with the stock AMD cooler, and that one I was easily getting well over 80C when doing like Cinebench or benchmarks like that. And with this Chione cooler, it's considerably cooler, getting in the low 70s. Really nice performance. Typically when I'm gaming with the system with that cooler, I'll get somewhere in like the 50 to 60C range during most games. So I think that's pretty good performance. That's well below any type of thermal limit or anything like that, keeping the processor really cool and performing at its best. A couple of really nice, interesting build notes on this case. It does come with those integrated RGB fans on the front, 200mm fans. It also comes with a little RGB controller for the fans as well. So you can basically connect the fans to them and connect that to your motherboard. If you want to connect the fans and sync them to your motherboard and use a software, you can do that via a digital RGB connection. That's the 3-pin. Or the case on top has a little button where you can actually change the LED lights. I figure that's a lot easier than having to mess with software, especially if the case is on your desk or somewhere where it's accessible. You can just press the button a few times and you can do whatever. You can set it to blue, to green, even have like a rainbow mode. So that's really, really cool. Right next to it, you also have a button where you can actually change the fan speed. If you press it, you can make the fan spin up a lot faster. That way, if you need more airflow, like if you're in a big gaming session or something like that. And then, of course, you can press it again, and the system is really, really silent with the fan setup that I have here. Airflow seems to be pretty decent as well. I mean, it does have a glass panel on the front, which generally is going to really sort of stop air from coming in. But if you notice the design of this case, that glass panel sort of perforated on the sides. It's not completely filling the sides up. It's sort of a shape, or almost like a thick V shape where it goes down. So the sides are open, so you get a decent amount of airflow going in, keeping the air flowing through the back and then up the top as well with that liquid cooler on the roof. So in general, airflow, considering that the front is a little bit open so air can go through. So that way it's fairly decent. I mean, I get it with the glass. You want to have that look so you can see these fans. And I think the aesthetic trade-off is definitely sort of worth it because the front just looks so awesome with these 200mm fans just with their RGB blaring through. I really think it's worth the visual treat to give up a little bit in that thermal performance. Overall, I really enjoyed building in this case. Everything's pretty nicely laid out. It's just simple and straightforward. It has tempered glass. It has all these little cool things. Now, I didn't try to mount a vertical GPU or anything like that. I just did a horizontal GPU. But otherwise, I think this case is pretty cool. Those 200mm fans really make it unique. So overall, this is a pretty cool case to build in with some really interesting little things. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next one.